All right, welcome to our sixth solution raising. We've done five other ones, and this is our one on labor. So what a solution raising is we spend, I'm just gonna mute you for a second, Mark, because it might be yours that's chirping at me. We spend an hour having a conversation to generate solutions for a specific area. So you spend 15 minutes talking about what it looks like right now in society. This is normally what we concentrate on. It clearly takes a lot longer than 15 minutes to figure out what's good and bad about transportation, or in this case, labor. But because we concentrate on it so much in society, I just get 15 minutes to kind of recap what we all know and think about it. With the pandemic, it can sometimes take a little longer than 15 minutes because things have changed. And so it's not the same old that we talk about. And then we spend 15 minutes talking about our version of an amazing future, however far in the distance you need it to be, 5, 10, 100 years. And then we spend the vast majority of the time, the 30 minutes, talking about what is an adjacent possible. What is something we could do right now if we had 10,000 people and $100,000 that would help us, in this case, in the area of labor. So I will unmute you now, Mark, and I'll let Alejandra unmute herself if she wants to. And if you want to, what do you see happening right now with labor, Mark?
Well, I see a lot of fear. I've been on a couple of meditation groups, and there was a couple of people who were actually, you could see it in their face, they were terrified about the possibility that they wouldn't have money coming in the next week to pay for their rent and stuff like that. So I definitely felt that. At the other end of the spectrum, I see like a manufacturer in Kitchener mobilizing to retool laser cutters and 3D printers to make face masks, reusable face masks that to the doctor's specifications, and they're making something like 8,000 a day now. So and they're employing people from all over. So that to me, there's something there. There's an opportunity there. And of course they're making money, but he talked about making money in an almost apologetic way, as if to say, well, this has to be good for everyone. And I really like the sound of that. To me, that's kind of like the answer to the what is the fear and the feeling of hopelessness that I see from some of the people, is these kind of novel solutions where the people who create the company or the corporation have kind of like an internal guide that says, we only need to make this much money. As a matter of fact, we don't want to make any more money if there's a possibility that we can employ others, and our solution will go viral. No matter what it is, it'll go viral. People will see it's sustainable and growing and good for everyone and want to get in because of that. So I see that as an opportunity, like right now.
I made some notes because sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And so, like I said, like before I started these solution raisings in slightly a COVID-19 pre-world, where although it was still happening in Japan, it was still happening in China, and it was spread. It wasn't yet as close to us in North America as it is now. And so I've been thinking about labor for years. So the things that I'm going to mention aren't necessarily related to the pandemic, but at the same time, they are, because they're why everyone is so stressed right now, and why we have to, that labor right now is basically trading your time for money. And so you're on your own, you have to find a job, trade your time for money, and then you use that money to get your needs met, to put a roof over your head and food on the table for you and your family. And I see Alejandra, and now has her stuff back on, so I'll join her back in. And even people who are working extremely hard can't seem to make ends meet. And yet there's people who have useless jobs who make millions and millions of dollars, who the thing they are doing isn't actually contributing to society in any real way. They're not making anything, they're not coming up with new inventions, they're just trading digits, they're speculating on the market or feeding off of other people's labor, and they're not able, and I mean really truly, they're not employing people, they're just it isn't fair. Like some people have to trade their time for money, and other people, entrepreneurs, are take high risk to make money. And now we're seeing that falling apart too, with the people who had high risk tolerance. They don't have money saved, so they can't make payroll, they can't pay their leases, they can't. So all of these businesses are going under, and so we're losing jobs. And everyone's seeing how our jobs are the way we get all of our needs met. It's the way we have our sense of purpose, and there isn't enough to go around, especially right now, right? There's only so many essential services that can employ people, and yet everyone still has rent. Everyone still has all of these expenses to pay. On the table, societal prestige, and
you see me moving my head. It's just I'm trying to tilt it back and forth. I'm not responding to you. I'm not saying, yeah, well, no.
It's hard when you first come, I know, because it's like a mirror. It's the mirror effect. And so, Alejandra, do you have anything to add to what labor currently looks like for you or in the world, whether pre-COVID or currently?
Yeah, this is also something that I've been thinking about for a while. I lived in Europe for a long time, in Holland, where things were very good. And I am from Argentina, and now I'm here in Buenos Aires since 2011. It's a completely different reality. So I'm sort of in contact with both realities. And one of the things that I've started seeing already when I was in Holland is that, okay, you can have organized labor and in such a way that it works for mostly everybody, that there is not enough work or labor to go around for everybody, but you can have some sort of system that keeps that order in place. When you come to Latin America, that is not there. And then you have people out of work, structural poverty, and other type of social plans that need to be put in place in order to contain the problem. We already see that there is not enough for everybody because of the way that it's structured. And there is also something else that I see is that, and it's to that point that you were making, there is a mismatch between money, value, and wealth. So those concepts are sometimes used as placeholders for one another, but they are not the same. So you get money from some service that you provide, and that service or that good that you provide might have value or not. And what we see is a lot of money being poured into things that do not represent real value for other people or society. So it's just like, the financial game, creating more money for money. And that is also not necessarily representative of the wealth that you might have as a person, because the wealth is also represented by your network, by your the quality of the air that you breathe, and all other things. So where labor comes in is in one specific area that is the means in order to get what you need to cover your needs, not only the physical and material needs, but also psychological, emotional, and self-realization. So I see that as there's a broken system. What we know that is not sustainable in time, and the gig economy is also not a good solution for that. It has to slowly start drifting to a different paradigm, which now is being accelerated by the whole crisis. And the whole crisis, what is producing, and also not this crisis, but also the whole scalable age that is already coming, and now is being sort of catalyzed by the corona crisis, is this new way of collaboration that also produces a lot of displacement, and the sectors that are displaced are not necessarily the ones that are easier to absorb. So it's this very, very tricky situation in which we're in, that is long time coming. In my eyes, it's not new, but now it's being accelerated, and that's one of the things that worries me the most about this whole new situation, because we're gonna see the effects of this coming in the next few months, and it will last for a long time, and there need to be solutions in place to start absorbing and redirecting labor in ways that are sustainable and useful for everybody. So that's where I'm at right now.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention we only have a few more minutes to discuss this portion, so now we can just open up. Now that everyone's had a chance to share. My brain is not on point today, but I wanted to share this picture that I drew. I draw this picture a lot. It's what I've sat with so for something to get done in our society, you need one individual to have all three of these things: the desire to do the task, the awareness to do the task, and the skill to do it, right? The awareness that the task needs to get done. And in society, the only one we really care about is that people don't desire to do the task, so we pay them to do it. But it doesn't actually get them the same level of happiness that if they had truly desired to do the task without being paid for it. The other two are much easier to deal with. I'm just going to put this down now. If you're not skilled in the task, you just need training. And the one that our society doesn't focus on at all is that if you both want to do the task and are trained to do the task, which is happening right now in the world where people are like, I know how to make respirator masks. I know how to do 3D printing. I am aware this thing needs to get done, but I don't know where to put it. And that can be an easy technological fix, something that is just a platform of, hey, this task needs to get done. Do you have the skill and the desire? Here is the awareness that it is getting done. Because I think with labor, there's the economic part that we need things done. And now we're seeing what truly is an essential service that needs to happen in our economies for our economies to function, for our world to function. And then there's the individual piece, which is like, we want to have a sense of purpose and get our needs met, right? We need food, we need, and so to some degree, I like teasing those two apart to say, how do we get those both met without it all being this complex menagerie of, complexity that it falls apart. And it's like, wait, not everyone's job is necessary, but people are necessary. They still need to get fed. They still need to get clothed and housed. So.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any wrapping up thoughts for this section on how the world currently works before we get to shift into the beautiful version of the future that doesn't need to match, but can be anything we want it to be in this realm of getting stuff done in our economy and individually?
I'll say one thing. I've been involved in a couple of training initiatives. I was involved with Bombardier's business unit here in Moose Jaw. They do NATO flight training. So countries from all over the world, Holland and Britain and Italy, that are in NATO. And they came out with this Achieving Excellence program as a way to engage their employees. And it was really well researched. It was just not well delivered. So it was as if they were recognizing that the better way to do things was to create an awareness and a desire in their employees and leverage that with the company's mission and vision. But there was some disconnect. They couldn't quite do it. They didn't get the buy-in, and when they rolled it out, it was as if the people who were rolling it out were saying, this is something we need to do to please the bosses because we're getting graded on this. So there was a disconnect, but I was surprised by the level of understanding. Somebody connected the dots to say that somebody has to see where their work matters. They have to know that they're being listened to, and there has to be a robust way of gathering all of that information and kind of in an active listening way, put it back to the employees. So it was it was like a great idea, but the execution was flawed. So to me, it's like there's that new way of being is in there. It's already in there. People recognize it. They just don't recognize it to a level of, say, the worth of a machine. You know, they haven't quite raised it to that level. So to me, that's promising.
Alejandro, do you have any closing thoughts for this section on how the world currently works?
No, actually, I thought it was really interesting, the graph that you showed about skill and desire, which is another, the other side of the coin. You have value, money, and wealth, and then you have on the other side of the sort of like the structural situation. And then from the perspective of the person, having the skill, the desire, and the awareness. And also that led me to think about the connection. It's like when you have the desire, when you have the skill and the awareness, why can't you get the job? So that filter there. It's like right now we have people that meet all these qualities, but they need to go through this funnel in order to be placed in different positions. So that's and one thing that came to my mind when you were talking about that.
Right, thank you. So now we can switch into our beautiful version of the future. In your ideal world, what would labor look like, either for you, for the world, the economy, or for both? Whichever would like to start. I have lots of thoughts on this as well, which is why I've been sitting with this for so long.
Go ahead then.
All right.
Love to hear.
To me, my version of the future doesn't tie together our needs and our desire to contribute in the world. I want every human being's needs to be met, make sure that they are fed and clothed and housed and educated and connected, while at the same time finding out their unique contribution to the world that may or may not be profitable, may or may not be something that other people value to put money on, right? You might be a teacher teaching someone who can't afford the tuition. And so separating the individual's needs, making sure those are met, and then making sure also that everything gets done within society is dealing with that graph. It's instead of paying people, finding the people who want to do the work. If someone wants to do the work, they are willing to do it for free if their needs are met. They don't need to necessarily get paid. If they want to, if we don't have enough skilled people to do it, making sure there's enough people going through the education system for that specific task. And if they just aren't aware that the task needs to get done, that is the simplest one, as I said. And then where we've concentrated on that, we've let people have their calling, their unique contribution, and stuff just doesn't get done. Like we look at the world and potholes aren't filled, then you start doing external motivation and incentivization. Hopefully beyond money in my perfect world, where it's maybe like you get a concert to your favorite artist, they're sponsoring pothole filling and people who fill potholes, or just asking what would get you to want to fill a pothole. How many, is it making it fun, having music live events there, knowing how to do it, doing it one time and one time only, or becoming skilled at it, that everyone has their unique sense of self in that. Like what would make it fulfilling for them to do those things. And so for me, I want to untie this time, exchanging your time for money, and instead having it be a world where you're choosing what to do with your time, which I think does bring you into your highest calling and contribution. And then your needs are also being met efficiently with groups of people. And like I said, incentivizing externally when needed, but not starting there, not starting at that place once the system's in place, because clearly this isn't a world, like we couldn't do this right now in this world, but it is happening. Like right now, there are so many people doing good in the world and they're doing it for free. They're, artists that make millions of dollars who are putting on live concerts in their living room because it's what they want to do with their time. And teachers who are, putting out videos to teach, even if they weren't doing that beforehand, now that they have the time and they already had the skill, they're willing to step into that role. And so that is a bit of my vision of what I would like to see in 10 to 20 years. And I don't know if I muted people. Okay, I can unmute you, but you can unmute. And then I think Mark muted himself, right?
I have similar thoughts about that. The coupling.
Oh, just like, before you go, they don't need to match. So you don't need to like, this isn't possible for mine. This is like the version of the future. What is your vision of the future? And what is, I forgot to explain that.
That's great that you mentioned it. It's like, it turns out that I had similar thoughts in terms of decoupling the money from meeting the needs. In my ideal world, you wouldn't have to worry about shelter and clothing and the basic cost of education and making, the end of the month and groceries and things like that. Like, your needs should be met with whatever means necessary, and that should free you up to think what and feel what is right for you, what is your unique capacity. I think that is very, very connected to education, with how you brought up and what your possibilities are to explore and discover what is actually fulfilling to you, what you can do, what you want to do, and your skill to do, and bring that to offer to other people in society. And that you don't need to get paid for that. If you do what you want, that will be ideal. And then you can also choose to collaborate where you see the need. And this idea brings me back to this idea of passion that many people talk about. You should do what you're passionate about, and that doesn't mean that it's something that makes you necessarily happy or completely fulfilled. Sometimes passion is the drive to solve a problem that you believe in. For example, I think that we should, clean up this river. Is something that you like to do in reality, like picking up garbage and things like that? No, but something that you really believe in. So that is the other thing. So it's like having your needs met, being able to choose without having to think about money or making it to the end of the month, what you want to do and how you want to collaborate. And that is more or less what my ideal looks like. That with the opportunity to keep on learning, to always keep on learning and improving yourself, because that is in contrast with what you might have now, that is like you're kind of stuck in a road and then it's very difficult to switch. And that flexibility, when you decouple it from money and having to earn a paycheck, that opens up a whole world of new possibilities.
Mark, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so you all done, Alejandra?
Yes.
Okay, I like those. I like the ability to have all your needs met without having to worry about going into a job that you think sucks your soul. Because I've done that for a little bit, and there's a lot of negative things that come out of that just are not good for anyone. There's some good things. I mean, there's something to be said for, that grit to be able to go to do something that you dislike, but you stick with it and you grow and you become something stronger than you thought was possible. I think there's something to be said for that. But just the system, the way it is now, it produces this huge inequalities and just, so I think there has to be a different driver. And for me, the driver that seems to resonate for me is wanting to move society forward, wanting the best for me, my future selves, my community, and the world, with the knowledge being, for me to have my best experience, I need everyone else to be their best self. No matter what I do for myself, if I become the richest person in the world and everybody else is starving outside me, that's not my best experience in the world. It really isn't. You can feel it. I can just feel it in my body. It wouldn't be. So I would like to see the generator where it is that there is a felt sense in your body, like a participatory knowing that that person who is homeless may have the solution that helps us get through the next mess we're in. So it's not like I feel I said a consciousness thing or a conscience. It's like I know there's something that is risking my future and my children's future if I let somebody starve to death and fail to bring their brilliant potential into the world. So I'd like to see that be the driver of an understanding that the world needs to look like what you both just described, but the understanding that it needs to be that way for our best experience. So if that was a generator, then people would find a way to make sure that that person has the best opportunity to bring their brilliance to the world while making sure that everyone's fed and taken care of. So then that generator would I guess some things, the way of living would emerge out of that, making sure everything is taken care of. So in my perfect world, everybody has that awareness that if I see somebody in the street that is struggling, there's a potential risk that that might be the one grain of sand that tips the scales towards hell rather than towards, just kind of like a paradise on earth that where everybody's able to do the work that they that reflects their best self, I guess. So to me, that world of that would undergird the world of labor and allow all those things to happen. Anyways, I don't know. It's kind of out in left field, maybe, but that's for me. That's the basics. That was the basics behind when I looked at Bombardier's Achieving Excellence. That's the way I looked at it. When I chaired meetings, I often would go to someone and ask them if they had a dissenting opinion, trying to get to the heart of what was behind their dissenting opinion, with the idea that this person might be the one helping us to avoid disaster. So then if we looked at everyone like that, especially the artists, you can't monetize what they bring, but you want them to bring it, even though it's different from your vision. You want them to bring it because they might give you something that you have no other way of achieving. Anyways, I've talked long enough. I don't know if I've added anything.
Thanks, Mark. You added a lot, and I think that is a good vision of the future, is where we do see the value in other human beings. Every human being has worth, and even if I'm acting selfishly, the best thing I can do for myself and my child is to make sure everyone is looked after for exactly the reason you said. They could be the solution. And right now I'm seeing a lot of extreme ableism and ageism of like, well, we can't shut down the economy for the people over 85 and like whatever, they already have pre-existing conditions. We're already putting a lot of money into them. And I believe that those very people, the elders, of course, have knowledge because they've been here for longer than anyone else, but including the people who have chronic illnesses and such have a different life experience. I know that is a big part of why I'm doing what I'm doing in the world and why I'm able to handle this crisis so much better than a lot of other people is because of my health challenges and what I've been through. And so to lose that what we look at as the weak portion of our society, which when in reality they might be physically weak, their immune system might be weak, their lungs might be weak, but they are not weak, and they have so much to give, and we are going to lose a lot. I am going to lose a lot by other people dying. You are going to lose a lot by other people dying, who might be the people who solve cancer, who might be the people who know how to clean up the ocean, it might be the people who are just there for us when we're going through a hard time. And to honor that every human being has potential, and to allow that to emerge is definitely a part of my beautiful future. Anything you'd like to add, Alejandra or Mark, before we go on to the adjacent possible, what we could actually create right now?
I also feel the same way in that respect. Like the idea that it has to be the best possible situation for everybody. It's out of like compassion for and empathy for other people. And also, like, if we have to collaborate on everybody all together, the better we collectively are, the better we can progress together. This is the part of like the scalability of the system, like in exponential technologies and exponential problems. We have to consider the whole, and this single person, more than it could be like the tipping point. It could be that person that has the solution, but that person is also valuable in and on itself. So I think that's very, very powerful what you said, Mark. And then I also think it's very interesting, this idea of grit, because the grit and the struggle, and it helps us become. Maybe there is another way. Maybe the world I imagine it's ideal, but it's not perfect. So there is always the potential for transformation. And maybe there is struggle, but it doesn't have to be such a difficult one, or is not the level of difficulty and cruelty that we might experience right now. But I think there is, as you said, something to be said about grit and this ability to push through something and come out better. So that's something that I take as well to think about and consider.
Thank you. We both unmuted you at the same time, Mark. There's a little chirp on your end when you're not talking, so that's why I keep muting you. So you just
okay. Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on what Alejandra said about there needs to be that struggle, but there doesn't need to be added malevolence. It's like allowing the caterpillar to break its way out of the chrysalis so it doesn't die. If you help the caterpillar to break out of the chrysalis, its wings don't become strong enough and it just struggles and dies. It's a horrifying thing. But at the same time, you don't want to pinch the chrysalis so much that the butterfly never emerges. So I think it's an awareness of that, not adding malevolence to somebody's natural journey, which that happens every day. We see malevolence in our way, and we inadvertently add to it. I know everyone does, some more than others, but I think I like that, drawing that distinction. I think that's important.
I like that, Mark. So now we can transition to the last section, which is creating the adjacent possible. So what could we create together that hopefully no single one of us could create it by ourselves, like just the idea, if we had 10,000 people and $100,000 and created something that was voluntary, that was a natural attractor, that wasn't about enforcing our desire for a perfect world on other people, but something we could create that would bring people in. And I think that, yeah, what could we create with 10,000 people and $100,000 that helps in this position? Either the need for things to get done in the economy, that jobs that are essential, how do we get them done? Or how do we get people to fulfill their purpose and their genius? whether we want to tease those things apart or whether we want to. And so it can be solutions to any of it with all the other solution raisings. It's not like we stuck to one solution. It's just like popcorn. This could be a possibility, and this could be a possibility that is there for 10,000 people and $100,000. And they could be people in the same city if that's necessary, or they could be people around the world.
How did you come up with that number, 10,000?
Just because it's a doable number. It's not catastrophically huge, but it's enough that you could create that $100,000 is relatively easy. It's not going to be a high risk for any single individual there. And it helps, like me coming up with $100,000 would be next to impossible, but 10,000 people coming up with 100,000 isn't. And 10,000 people is not extreme. It's not a pie in the sky vision of utopian future, finding 10,000 people who want to create a solution to labor or food or transportation. So that is it's like the starting point of something. Because if you had 100,000, then you'd have $1 million. That'd be even better. But it's starting from this point. What could you create with that?
When you showed your diagram, there were ideas kind of generating in my mind. Because you're kind of like naturally an idea facilitator, a people facilitator, connector, a connector maybe. Maybe you're more naturally a connector. Or something between the two. But what if the 10,000 people was an extended version of the spirit that has tension in you right now? So driven by that same idea to connect skill to awareness and desire, and provide a space where that could be multiplied 10,000 times in a dynamic way where people around those 10,000 people in their own little communities could see opportunities where their skill and or where their desire and awareness could match a skill that they already possess. I think that's one way to use that. So maybe not labor right away. It could be labor right away, but I think it might be a very, very powerful thing if we could show people right now how they might be useful right where they are. And do that, continue that on into the future in such a way like that guy in Kitchener or Labatt's who's making hand sanitizer. They've basically put the game A hoarders out of business by saturating the market with a free product, because they see they have a desire and an awareness, and they have the skill, and they just put it out there. And I think it can win. That's a very good natural attractor. People feel it deep down, especially at a time like this. So if we could show people where the opportunities are, that might be something. That's just the first thing that occurred to me.
Yeah, I think that a lot of my ideas come from this diagram of like, if we could help people train, right? That's a platform, that's a tech platform that's quite easy there. If we could help people just know what is out there that needs to get done, and if we can focus their desire. And yet all of our current Game A world is generally focused on how do we create the desire so you want to do this job? How do we create the desire for this product that you don't actually want? Instead of is it like uniquely yours to do? And that makes it sound like it has to be a grandiose, you'd have to know your purpose on the planet and your genius before you can take a step forward. But it's what do you want to do with this morning? What do you want to do with this week? That's not directly connected to labor necessarily, but the more we follow our own, I think, internal guidance of just what do we want our physical bodies to do? What do we want our minds to do? What do you want to learn? What do you want to physically do? the more we can create the technology infrastructure to make that so easy so that everyone's labor that they're wanting to give to right now, the pandemic, or to growing food, or to anything that they're seeing as a solution can be easily focused towards something that's meaningful to them. And so a volunteer coordinating platform could be something we could absolutely do with 10,000 people and $100,000, or a skill sharing platform of, hey, whatever the new industries that are going to emerge out of this are, I want to be able to train in that. However can I train in that without spending a new hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars to train in that myself? One of the other things, I think it was Alejandra who talked about the gig economy. And although right now during this crisis, there is so much there, transportation is still part of the gig economy, right? Getting goods to people, getting that stuff made, but the profit doesn't go to the restaurant. And in fact, it costs restaurants a lot to have their food delivered. And it doesn't go to the driver, and it doesn't go to the person using it. It goes to shareholders in Uber, in TaskRabbit, in all of these places. Creating a platform for 10,000 people, focusing on one industry and saying, hey, here's our platform for plumbers, or our platform for house cleaners, and coordinating it in a way that it both brings the cost for the consumer, the user, down, and gives the worker a higher wage or a higher resource capacity, is what we can do together when we're not siphoning off the profit for shareholders. So if we had a labor platform where when you're part of it, you're both self-employed, right? Like I'm my own employee and I'm house cleaning for someone else, but I can also tap into a union of self-employed people, right? Where like, you don't have to go out and find your work. We can find you work. You're going to clean for all the houses in this neighborhood on this day, so it's more efficient. And you're making $25 an hour, but you're making $25 an hour, right? Maybe you're paying $5 a month to use the platform or something. And so creating it in a way where it empowers the individual, and also we can solve problems together, but there isn't all this, there's a natural tension between someone giving the labor and someone using the labor. But the more that we can problem solve that together, like, hey, if you want a house cleaner to come on your schedule, you're gonna have to pay them a premium. But if you can come on their schedule, if you can, you know what I mean, they're in your area on Mondays, if you let them clean your house on Monday, you get $1 per hour off or $5 per hour off. And they're not having to do all this travel time. Like, there's ways to coordinate labor and bring the cost down for the person who needs the labor, and bringing the hourly wage up for the person, and combining our buying power in a way where you can have medical insurance, you can have dental, you can have health, you can have disability, you can have all of these things because you're buying them together, and making sure that we're taking care of one another. And then we already have a foundation of people to coordinate how do we bring down our cost of living. But that's a little bit the previous section of like, how do we feed ourselves for less and less money? How do we clothe ourselves for less and less money? Which is the reason we're working. But those are all different solution reasons. Like, how do we do those things without needing jobs?
Yeah, this very interesting. There, I think about that. Like, sorry, I'm speaking Spanglish now. I just went with a few Spanish words. There are like two things that could be done, and they are very interesting, both of them. One is the volunteer area. It's super interesting because it helps people do things that they want to do, and they feel that makes them feel useful and has like an emotional payoff. Even if there is no money, there is nothing else that you get. The payoff is that you did something that actually helps and provides value. That is very interesting if it can be scaled up, as Mark said, and with connectors and local communities, because it has much more impact and much more reach. And that's super interesting to explore and see if that with time can be transformed into something that actually also provides a monetary payoff as well. On the other hand, if you take that and transform it into something that actually pays and is like a collective that can help workers and labor be a little bit more democratic, so they get the money that gets paid gets paid to labor, and there are no middlemen taking chunks of the paycheck and things like that. That's super interesting as well. The only thing I see there is like it starts to get into a competition area. Like there are some tech platforms that work like that or have certain features, and they create this tension that it could be diffused by not having sort of an optimizing algorithm that has like this person has the best rating and creating competition between people, but facilitating the connections between the ones that has a task to be done and someone that actually has the skill and wants to do that, and start. But that as an adjacent possible is very interesting. Not to get rid of all the problems, but to start creating a safer environment for people. So if you go now to a regular platform like TaskRabbit or Upwork, and then you have to sell yourself and you have to do all these things, that might still be needed. But if you, on the other hand, can start building that capital to say, okay, so if you're here, we got to make sure that you have certain amount of work, so it gets sort of evenly distributed somehow, or that you get a benefit for dental or like certain types of insurance, so you get some perks that are not necessarily like monetary, that give you play on this feeling safe, because what we don't have sometimes is that feeling that you like you are on your own, and belonging to a platform that or a group that can help you in that respect. I think it would be super valuable already. Not that you just have to go into a platform and try to get freelance gigs as much as you can because you cannot plan, but it gives you some peace of mind, that some sense of security. That is also already something really interesting to explore. And these two aspects, or sort of these two ideas, could be connected as well, or drive one into the other. It comes to my mind the big disruptions as well in the tech industry, things like Wikipedia, that before you had all the knowledge in the encyclopedias and Britannica, things like that, and all of a sudden people just for free started adding to this humongous library, and then we have all this knowledge online, and collaboratively we keep it updated and improve it. So there is something there that people are willing to do without getting paid, but actually we have a collective payoff. I wonder if there is something there in the voluntary area that it could also have some impact in the labor area. So if you start doing more things get done for free, then you need less money. So in a way, so it's very simplistic, right, what I'm saying, but that's something to consider. I think they are both very interesting to explore. I don't have another idea to add. I think it's very interesting, these two things that came out. My first idea was also like a platform where we can connect people, but I think the two dimensions, especially the idea of connectors and amplifying that Mark brought up, and this possibility of connecting voluntary work and paid work are very interesting.
Mm-hmm. And I love Mark's idea of helping, because I don't know I know I'm here to help create a world that works for everyone. I know I'm here to help a tech cooperative, but I wouldn't know how to put that into a job description. I wouldn't know how to put that into what do I uniquely have to offer that could be compared to somebody else. And so help finding out what is, like, if you're running a team and you need a marketer, you need this and you need that, like putting those teams together so that then they can move forward and create something, a volunteer team of like tackling this problem and moving forward with that. And sorry, Mark, what are you going to say?
No, I was just going to ask Alejandra if what she foresaw was a platform that could possibly grow into those things. And so when I envision it, I envision like a radical transparency, so that people can see where every dollar is going, right? And so if there is um, if there is competition in a certain area, uh, they would have to also have this radical transparency. And at some point, if somebody is going to uh, sign up with somebody, the being able to see everywhere where your dollar's going would force, that would be a natural attractor for a game B control of it, because I'm going to go to that company that's kind of helping the world better, taking a fair wage. And if the wages they're taking are too low, they won't be able to survive. So I don't want that. I want to know that they're going to have enough money to survive and attract the expertise without being too radically selfish. But also the idea that it could grow into bigger things by saying maybe this is what we need to connect to. So we're open to blending in an open source way with somebody who is willing to set up an insurance plan for us. Tell us what you have, and we'll try and leverage our 10,000 people, whatever it is, to give this insurance or financing or whatever else to meld with that. I was wondering if that is what, Alejandra, you were seeing, or is that me just interpreting it differently?
No, yes, I also saw in my head, it requires this total transparency, because then you have, you see all the mechanisms at work and what gets paid to where and why, and then you can be accountable for everything that happens there. So that is, it could be at the level of the sort of like the person that has a job to offer or a task to be done, and why is paying so much for this task, and exactly how that works. That also will be used as reference, that it could be used for benchmarking and say, okay, this is more or less what as a price regulation in a way, what is the standard for these taxes. Like, then if something proves to be very useful, then you will also say, hey, why is it paying so low? Then I think what you said, Mark, is very interesting when you take it to a level of a company, the company that is operating like this, and you want them to survive. You want them, the rates to be high enough so they can do well, and you don't want them to get all the jobs, because you also want to be able to distribute them, to facilitate the distribution. It's not something that you can regulate manually. But that, I think that is also important, that and it's part of this being radically transparent. Why the value comes to the surface? You're paying more. You want them to do well because they're really providing value with whatever value we define is. So it has to be good for people, it has to pay well, it has to be responsible with the environment, and this type of thing. That is at the company level. There is one more thing that I wanted to say, and that's something that Julie said about the groups of people, task forces of people that can be put together. That is, it reminded me to the model of some companies that do functional testing, for example, that they have sort of team leads that work with a lot of people that are part of the platform, that they get paid if they find bugs or if they for a platform. It's not necessarily a secure pay, but you have a pretty good chance of making some money if you participate on test. If you are certified, if you learning curve, and then you get sort of like the bad that you have this knowledge, then you start getting assignments, and you are free to take them or not taking them. And these team leads are sort of like the enablers that they also teach you during that first period of time where you are sort of learning the ropes. And that is something that is another role that it will be interesting to explore, because it's people that can help other people finding their place in teams. So these enablers, like helping, how do you present yourself, especially in things that are more tricky, like the example is like, well, I'm here to help connect other people. How do I express that? How do I show that? And how other people see that there is value in it? And then creating these teams. It's like this task to be done. Okay, so what do we need for that? You define sort of the initial requirements, and then you gather the people, open it up. It's one project, then next time around it could be another set of people. So this idea of keeping the rotation open, if you have some sense of security and then you have some variety, then you start getting a lot of movement, and that gets even more interesting as more people join. I know it sounds a little bit, maybe a bit disjointed. There's a lot of ideas flowing around here.
That's what we are. It's all good. But also, I like the idea of the radical transparency also, because it helps us find niches to problem solve in as well. Like, especially with the gig economy, and especially with Uber and the delivery ones, they don't take into account that these people have to pay for gas, have to pay mileage, or if they do, it's usually below the cost actually to upkeep their vehicle. Whereas if we were able to be transparent in that, then we could both know that you're not paying enough to this person. And also we could have like mechanics that are at cost, right? That are designed to bring, like, they're getting paid their labor to be part of the system. And they're like, we can coordinate on a higher level. We can bulk buy cleaning supplies if you're a cleaner, and you can see, is it environmentally friendly? We can crowdsource what is the best cleaner, right? What do you need less elbow grease for, but is environmentally friendly and is going to clean this specific task? And sharing the knowledge and sharing just doing a lot of the busy work that like if you're a house cleaner and you have to market and you have to coordinate and you have to, get this all together, if the back end can do that for you, if a platform is created for you to be able to do that, you can more focus your time on the actual cleaning and get paid directly for every hour that you are working.
Something just occurred to me as you were saying that. You were talking about crowdsourcing the cleaning material. So I picture that as getting input in from people whose opinion you value. And so that by itself has a lot of power and leverage. And it reminded me that of an idea I tried to float a long time ago, way before its time, about this network green thing, the idea that something could be good for the earth and financially stable at the same time. And part of that was a way to audit companies, because I did auditing for Achieving Excellence, so I got some experience in that. And auditing can have like it can be an attractor like ISO 9000 or ISO whatever it was. That they paid people to come in and audit, and they advertised how they were at that ISO level. So that became an attractor for them to create a quality system and to create processes and have a way of showing them and protecting them. So and ensuring that people use them. So it would be cool if we could create a space that was an attractor for kind of an omni-beneficial way of operating. So if we could incorporate into that and publish a magazine of anybody that had buying power to say, these are the companies that you should invest in, because just at a plain surface look and their behavior, here's where we think they rate on this omni-beneficial spectrum. But if they are willing to pay for an auditor, we will audit them fairly, and we might come out with the same thing, because the audit will be the same price for everyone. It might be lower for smaller companies. Yeah, that's it. It would be lower, something like that. It would have to be a way that the group could not be influenced by money, and everything would have to be radically transparent. But it could create an attractor for omni-beneficial behavior by different companies.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, auditing is something that the more transparent you are and the more willing you're able to speak truth, the bigger advantage it gives you in the right system. In the current system, it doesn't, because if you showcase that you're maybe not as environmentally friendly as you could be, or as socially just as you could be, they don't have anyone to compare that to, so they just assume you're worse than the competition. But in a society where we, the consumer, demand transparency, then if you're not telling the truth and you're not being transparent, we assume worse than the truth, right? We'd assume worse than the competition, as opposed to assuming you're better than, right? So I think auditing is a big part of that, and it's labor itself. Like, especially if we were able to have a algorithm and a spreadsheet system to be able to help with that, that's something I would enjoy doing, is auditing something, right? And we could do it crowdsourced, where it's in more of a like 5-10 minutes here and there, and you have 1,000 people auditing you instead of one doing it really in an expert fashion. It could be something that is more volunteer and more just depending on, of course, what you're auditing and how complex it is.
Yeah. I guess when there's something to be said for 1,000 opinions. There needs to be a way, if we did that, to make sure most of them were well-intentioned and not robots, obviously. But anyways, it's just an idea to create an attractor. So this group that's 10,000, that could be a thing that they do as well. Is if they 10,000 people. So 10,000 people, well-intentioned, and so if we started with 100 and each person brought in 10 from their network and did it that way, you could build up to 10,000 quite easily. And then so we assume they're all well-intentioned, and then they if we leverage their perspectives or their ability based on a performance scale that you make up to rate certain companies based on what their experiences with those companies, then you could produce something that could be published to those 10,000 and others that they're associated with. So the reach could be easily scale up to 1 million or more. And then that might create the attractors for the companies to want to be audited, want to change and change their behavior. Anyways, it's, yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. I'll shut up.
All right. Does anyone, so we're past the hour mark. Does anyone have any closing statements on what they would like to say? I just wanted to quickly say that when you talk about going from 100 to 10,000, and then you were like, and we could get to 1 million, that actually is the same factor. Going from 100 to 10,000, which is the doable amount, is the same, right? You 100 people bring in 10 people, you have 1,000. Bring in 10 people, you have 10,000. And then of course it goes to 100,000, then 1 million. So it's like the same factor difference. And so if you can get from 100 to 10,000, you can get to 1 million just as easily. Do either of you have any closing thoughts before we say goodbye to YouTube?
No, I think this has been great. Great exercise.
All right. Thank you.
Talk about it.
And do you have any closing thoughts, Mark? I can't even speak anymore.
No, said enough. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye, YouTube.
Thank you.